Hey everyone, welcome back to Leadership with Purpose. You know how this works by now. We take something interesting, we dig into it, and we pull out the good stuff that you can actually use. And today, well, we are going deep on this book by Michael Bungay Stanier called, get this, The Coaching Habit. Say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever.
I love this book. It really gets down to the nitty-gritty of leadership, No highfalutin theories, just practical tools that you can start using immediately, like today.
Totally. And the big idea here, the heart of it, is this shift. You go from being the person who's always giving advice, the advice monster, as he calls it, kind of funny, to becoming more of a coach. So I got to ask, what's so bad about giving advice? Isn't that like Leadership 101?
Right, it seems natural, right, to jump in with solutions. But this book makes a really compelling case that always giving advice actually, well, it kind of stunts your team's growth. They don't learn to solve problems on their own. They become dependent on you for answers. And that really limits their potential and the team's potential too. Like you become the bottleneck.
Exactly. So the book champions this coaching approach. And the main tool here is powerful questions. And that's what we're diving into today. How these questions can totally transform your leadership, how you interact with your team.
And the great thing is, this isn't about becoming some certified coach. It's about weaving these questions into your everyday conversations, those quick check-ins, problem-solving discussions, even those hallway chats. That's where this stuff comes alive.
All right, so let's break down this whole advice giver to coach thing. What does that actually look like day to day?
It's a fundamental shift in your reaction, right?
Yeah.
When someone comes to you with a problem, instead of immediately jumping in with a solution like we're all tempted to do, you pause, you take a breath, and you ask a question. The whole idea is to empower that person to think it through themselves, tap into their own knowledge, their creativity, and to come up with their own way forward.
It's about cultivating that self-reliance, right?
Yeah.
That sense of ownership. Because if they find the answer, they're going to be way more committed to it.
You got it. When people own their solutions, they're invested. They learn through the process and they gain confidence. And that benefits them and it creates a more resilient team overall.
Makes sense. So the book talks about these 7 essential questions. Let's start with the first few. The first one seems so simple. What's on your mind? Almost too basic, right?
It does seem basic, but its power is in its simplicity, honestly. It's the perfect conversation starter. It's so open-ended, it tells the other person, hey, I genuinely care about what you want to talk about. Not just pushing my own agenda. Think about it. Starting with their agenda, it shows them you respect them, respect their time, their thoughts. It can really make them more open to what you have to say later.
So it puts them in control from the get-go.
Precisely. It respects their priorities. And it creates a real connection before you even get into the nitty-gritty of the issue. You'd be surprised what comes up when you give people that open invitation.
I like that. So it's a good tone. And the second question, this is a great one, is, and what else? You can feel the curiosity in that, right?
Absolutely. This question is all about digging deeper. Because often the first answer, the first problem that comes up, it's not the whole story. There might be other factors, even bigger ones, that are lurking beneath the surface. And what else? It's like this gentle nudge to keep exploring. We humans tend to grab onto the first solution we see, but that's rarely the best one, or the whole picture. This question pushes us past that initial shallow thinking. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion to get to the core.
So it's about uncovering what's really going on beyond that first layer.
Yeah, it uncovers those hidden issues, leads to more creative and thorough solutions. As a leader, it's so valuable for building critical thinking in your team. You avoid those Band-Aid fixes that don't really solve the underlying problem.
And we've all seen those problems pop up again and again, right?
Yeah.
The third question is, what's the real challenge here for you? This one feels like it's getting at the personal impact.
It is. What's on your mind sets the stage, and what else broadens it. And then this question brings it to that personal level. How is this problem affecting you, the individual? What's at stake for you personally?
Why is that distinction so important?
Because often the problem itself isn't the real hurdle. It might be underlying anxieties, maybe a lack of confidence in a certain skill, or even conflicting priorities. Those are the real roadblocks. By understanding their personal challenge, you can provide much more targeted support. You're not solving the problem you think they have, you're addressing what's truly significant for them.
That's a really good point. All right, let's move on to the next set of questions.
Yep.
Number 4 is, what do you want? Seems pretty direct, but I can see how it would be powerful.
It's powerful because it is direct. When people are facing a challenge, they get fixated on the problem, the obstacles, the difficulties. What do you want? It shifts that focus to the desired outcome. It helps them define what success looks like for them in this specific situation and to own their goals.
It gives them direction, a target to aim for amidst the chaos.
Exactly. Without a clear understanding of what they want to achieve, their efforts can be scattered, reactive, and that's not effective. For leaders, this caution is crucial. It makes sure everyone is working towards meaningful, clearly defined outcomes. No one's just spinning their wheels.
And the fifth question is this interesting one, the lazy question. How can I help? Seems efficient, but why lazy?
The lazy part is that you're putting the responsibility on the other person to tell you what they need. You're not jumping in with your own assumptions, which might be wrong or even unnecessary. It's lazy because you're not wasting energy guessing, you're asking them directly.
So it's about providing the right kind of support, not just throwing random solutions out there.
Exactly. It's much more efficient in the long run. They tell you what they need and you provide it. No micromanaging, no offering help that's not actually helpful.
Smart way to think about it. The sixth question is the strategic question. If you say yes to this, what are you saying no to? This one brings in a wider perspective.
It does. This question is all about strategic thinking and prioritization. It makes people consider the trade-offs they're making. When you say yes to one thing, you're automatically saying no to others, whether it's your time, your resources, other opportunities.
So it's about being aware of those opportunity costs and making more conscious choices.
Absolutely. It helps people make thoughtful decisions about where to focus their energy. They can align their actions with their goals and the team's objectives. Leaders can use this question to cultivate that strategic thinking within their teams.
All right, and finally we get to the seventh question, the learning question. What was most useful or valuable here for you? This feels like a good way to wrap up a conversation.
It is. This question encourages reflection. It helps a person identify the key takeaways from the discussion. What did they learn? What was most helpful?
It reinforces that continuous learning and improvement.
Exactly. And for leaders, it gives you valuable feedback. What resonated with your team members, it helps solidify the learning so they're more likely to use those insights in the future. It's a really productive way to close the loop.
Now, the book emphasizes that it's not just about memorizing these questions. It's about making them a habit, a part of how you interact with people. So how does actually using these questions lead to a real transformation in leadership?
When you use these questions consistently, you start to see some really cool shifts. First, you get more empowerment and autonomy within your team. People start thinking for themselves, they develop their problem-solving skills, they own their work, and that leads to more motivation, more engagement.
Of course, if you've been part of finding the solution, you're going to be more invested in it.
Makes sense, right? Second, communication gets way better. These questions encourage active listening, empathy, open dialogue. You create a safe space for people to share their thoughts, which leads to stronger relationships and better communication overall.
And I bet it helps the team solve problems better too, as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. By guiding people to explore challenges from different angles, to find their own solutions, you're developing their critical thinking. You're creating a more resilient, resourceful team, a team that can handle whatever comes their way.
Now, what about efficiency? Sometimes it might feel like asking all these questions could actually slow things down, at least in the short term.
I hear you. It can feel that way at first, but in the long run, it actually makes you way more efficient because you're empowering people to solve their own problems. You're not always putting out fires or micromanaging. You free up your time and energy for the bigger picture.
So it's an investment in the long term.
Exactly. And it's also crucial for developing your people. You're giving them guidance and support, helping them reach their potential. And that makes the whole organization stronger. Plus, you're building stronger teams. Teams built on collaboration, trust, respect.
So beyond the questions themselves, the book talks about a coaching mindset. What does that look like?
It comes down to a few key things. First, you have to stay curious longer. Resist that urge to jump to conclusions, to offer solutions. Take your time, ask questions, really understand the other person's perspective.
Which can be tough, especially for people who feel like they need to provide answers.
For sure. And that brings us to the second part. Say less, ask more. Shift the balance of the conversation away from telling and directing. Ask those thoughtful questions. Sometimes the best thing you can do as a leader is help people find their own way.
And of course, there's that advice monster we talked about earlier.
Right. You have to be aware of that urge to jump in with your brilliant solution and then fight it. Your ego might want to take over, but it's not always what's best for the other person's growth. And finally, it's about truly valuing each person, seeing them as capable, resourceful, able to find their own solutions with the right support.
So how does all of this impact the big picture? What happens when leaders adopt this coaching habit across the whole organization?
The benefits are huge. You create a culture of continuous growth. Learning and development become the norm. When people are empowered to think for themselves, to explore new ideas, to take risks, innovation goes through the roof. And because you're building resilience and self-reliance, you get sustainable high performance. And you're developing future leaders from within, which is essential.
So it's a pretty transformative approach, not just for individual leaders, but for the whole organization.
It really is. It's a shift away from that old school top-down leadership. It's a more empowering, collaborative, and ultimately more effective way to lead.
So the takeaway here is that by consciously developing this coaching habit, especially by using these 7 questions, leaders can change how they interact with their teams, empower people to achieve more, and drive success for the entire organization.
It's all about unlocking potential, asking more, telling less.
So for you listening, here's a little challenge. Pick 1 or 2 of these questions and try to use them in your next conversation. See what happens. What kind of impact could that small change have?
It's such a simple thing, but it can be really powerful. Experiment with it, see what you observe.
We really hope this deep dive into Michael Bungay Stanier's The Coaching Habit has given you some great insights into leading with purpose and empowering your teams. If you enjoyed it, please do us a favor and like this deep dive and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep making content like this.